Okay. Let's get started. Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming to the last class. Let's see. Is this, maybe it's a bit better? So I'll turn the lights down a bit so you can see the slides better. And at the end, we have an open Q&A session so you can ask anything you want. I'm going to do two things today. First, I'll just go over the project details because the project is due end of this week. And then I'm going to talk about the exam. And then you can ask me anything you want. All right, I just want to remind you about the project because I've been getting a few emails and questions from students. So I believe most details and information and requirements about the project should be in LMS. So make sure you've seen the project description in LMS and you kind of read it. But basically, your deliverable needs to have 6 components. You need to upload the video. The video we said up to 10 minutes, but I suggest you make it less than that, okay? In the video, you want to show that your prototype works, and you want to show us that all the different things you wanted to do, it can do. So don't make it 10 minutes long if you can just do it 5 minutes, for example. Longer is not better. You need a screenshot from Android Studio, export of your commit logs, the declaration regarding every group member's contribution. And I've put this in LMS that we do reserve the right to penalize underperforming team members. Now, this doesn't mean that all underperforming team members will be penalized because some students because students underperform for different reasons. Some people get sick, things happen. Your group is not a court of justice, okay? So don't try to have declare war on each other and try to sort things out. Just, if there's a problem, just email me. Don't try to solve it yourselves, necessarily. And as I point out, we will look at what you think each group member did. And finally, just a text file as part of your submission. The text file, the template you can find in LMS. So far, so good? Okay. Here's how we're going to be grading the assignment. It's worth 20 points. So this is the grading scheme that is also in LMS. Okay? And we basically have 20 points, and there's 4 sections. And for each section, there's multiple multiple criteria, and we list those in LMS. And we will be grading your assignments against those criteria. I should also point out that we do have high expectations for this project. So I'm not sure, perhaps some students feel that, I don't know, almost everyone gets an H1. That's far from the case, all right? So we're not handing out high grades like chocolate, so there is a high expectation. All right. So any questions about the project before I move on to the exam? Do you have any questions now that you want to ask me about the project? Don't come up and walk to me afterwards unless it's a personal issue. Yes? Material means these things. So we're so good that you get points for just submitting stuff. Okay? So if you look in LMS, you will find what material means. It basically means you submitted these things. Any other question? Yes?
So in the video you said you demonstrate a prototype.
Yep.
We also need to explain some of the technical details, like to justify like these algorithms or advanced things.
Very good question. So what's an appropriate level of detail to show in a video? It's up to you. Here's my advice. My advice is that a human will be looking at the video and also at your report. So what I would say is that you can point out things in the video and give pointers to the report, right? So you say, okay, here's the screen where this thing happens, and in the report we explain exactly how it happens.
Where's this report? I wasn't aware that
So, you're right. I'm confusing the different subjects I'm teaching this semester. So, you guys are not submitting a report. Okay. Sorry, this is not an April Fool's joke. In your code. Yeah. Yes, yeah. So, if my main message is a human will be looking at this. So, make sure you talk about it in a way that makes sense. And if they want to know more about how you did it, they can look at the code. Any more questions? You don't have to submit a report, okay?
Another thing.
Yes.
I'm just an example is my own team project. So we were doing something that seemed a little bit in a technical sense, a little bit more complicated. We were dealing with some sensors that are hard to deal with them, and we might not be able to come up with possibly. I don't know. I'm just saying there's a probability that we might not come up with that much a high quality user interface. So my question is, if our those technical aspects that were sort of harder to do, some sensors that was not easy to just what is that called? It was just not easy to read data from the process. So if it does an aspect cover the matches that we might the matching UI itself, because if we had more time, it would definitely make that improve that UI.
Yeah, I understand.
But since time is strict, so if there is a probability.
So let me rephrase so everyone can hear. So if I understand, what you're saying is we did some really hard technical implementation. Some sensors took a lot of time to make work and do fancy things. And because we have limited time, as a result, maybe the interface is not as good as we would have liked it to be if we had more time. And I guess there's all kinds of trade-offs, right? So it doesn't have to be this specific trade-off, but that would be your question. So my answer is that that's a grading scheme. So if you did something that's technically challenging, that would go under quality of implementation, 5 points. You wouldn't get 10 points if you did exceptional work for one of these categories. Having said that, if you did spend some time on, let's say, user interface, you would get some points. You wouldn't get 0, right?
Yes.
So I understand that you would go,
It might not be that beautiful, I'm just saying.
and so it won't be a 5. Yes?
For, let's say, my project, we also use some features on the cloud, so there's cloud functions, cloud database, and everything. So it's obviously not going to be in the GitHub logs. So what should we do as a group to show that that works?
So when you say you use the cloud, you mean did you write software that sits in the cloud?
So like the AWS Lambda functions to call on machine learning functions or something.
Did you use cloud services, or did you actually yourself create some software that lives in the cloud?
Would you call the cloud functions which integrate all the services together and so on?
So what I would say is if you call a library or a function that sits in the cloud and Google wrote it, you don't need to include it. But if you did create, let's say, some server-side scripts, right, that you call, you include those in your submission.
So, but I mean, for example, when you want to, so each member should show contributions. So when you say you want to give all, so the member who did the functions in the cloud wouldn't be able to show any work for this.
I'm not sure I understand. Are you so?
I mean, I'm trying to say that.
If okay, let me put it this way: if I have to spend time writing code to use AWS, that's my time spent writing that code. That's what I include in the submission.
Yeah, but it's not in the Git logs, right? I mean, there is a submission like yes, this person did that, but there's nothing in the Git logs.
So you're saying you didn't keep commit logs for this code?
Yeah.
How come?
The function, Google Cloud functions that existed in Google Dialogflow wasn't integrated to Git.
Okay, so the best advice I can give you, if you spend time writing code, make sure we can see that code.
So I just copy and paste in GitHub and just use this in Google Cloud.
Attach it as a file, yeah, I'm not sure what else to suggest, but if you did spend time creating something, make sure we can see it. Okay? Was there a question here? No? No more questions? Okay. Just to clarify, people in the same group can get different grades. Okay? We do reserve that right for underperforming members. And I would say it's not the difference between, oh, you did a lot and I did a bit less. We don't mean that. We mean mainly students who didn't show up, who really didn't put effort into this, okay? And it's up to this statement for us to kind of understand what happened. Okay. Let's talk about the exam. The exam is worth 60% of your final grade. You will have 2 hours to complete the exam. There are 6 questions in the exam. Every question is worth 10 points, and there are sub-questions in each question. And sub-questions can be worth different amounts of points, and you need to answer all questions in the exam. So you don't get to choose. For each question and for each sub-question, we indicate how many points they're worth. And if you do the calculation, you'll see that the exam is 60% and the exam is 60 points. Therefore, each point is 1% of the final grade. I cannot stress the following statement enough. Do not write long answers. I repeat, you do not have to write long answers. You can get full points for the exam. You can get 60 out of 60 in the exam by just writing short sentences. So we're not testing your level of English here. That's what I'm trying to say. We're testing your knowledge on this topic. But you do have to write in English your answers. So I have here an example question in bold and an example answer. The answer has 2 parts. This answer would get full marks. Right? So we want to see whether you know or not. If you don't know, don't try to guess. Don't go off writing long paragraphs hoping that one of these things you're saying is going to be the right thing. Most of the time it doesn't work. In LMS, we have uploaded the previous exam and its solution. I want to point out that this previous exam was from a few years ago when this class and the content was quite different. So there is no programming assignments in the exam. The material from the tutorials is not in the exam, so we're not going to ask you about code and Android and Java and that kind of thing, but we are going to test your knowledge about, in general, the things we talked about in the lectures and the concepts. We're not, for example, we're not going to ask you to write down a formula for a Kalman filter. But we are going to ask you to tell us, what's the pros or cons, and when would you use one, when would you use the other? Does that make sense? Or we're testing your critical understanding of what's going on. This is what the cover page will look like. This is also in LMS. So you need to write your number at the top in the box and nothing else on the front page. Then the exam questions look like this. You'll see here, so just so to help you out, each question, there are 6 questions, and each question with a big font sort of indicates the lecture, the topic, just to help you localize yourself, okay? And within that, we ask a few sub-questions. So this is an example of an old exam, so none of these questions will be there. And in the new exam, in the exam you're going to have in a few days, there is much less space than this. So actually you don't need to write a lot and you can't write a lot. Now, if you do need more space for whatever reason, don't write on the margins or don't use very small letters. On the last page has one full box like this that you can just write a bit more and you can refer us to it. Hopefully you don't have to do that. So how can you prepare for the exam? You need to look at the slides we have uploaded in LMS and the material. So for each lecture, we have uploaded the slides and some additional material that explains some of the things that we discussed in the class, in the lecture. And a lot of you have asked what's happening with the lecture recordings. I see today it's not recording again. It's nothing I can do. The university actually sent us chocolate to apologize why the recording is not working. And I said they should send the chocolate to the students. Anyway. Okay, we know this happened. Do not panic, first of all. So the exam is written and has always been written in such a way so that you can complete the exam without necessarily seeing the lecture recordings. So it's not like we tell you something secret here in person that is going to be in the exam. We're not trying to trick you or anything like that. So all the questions in the exam that we wrote, and we have already written the exam, so I know what's in the exam, and I can tell you that they're all based in material that you can find in LMS. I have here the status of the different lectures. So lecture 8, there is no recording, so just look at what we've uploaded in LMS. Lecture 9, there was no recording, but I found the recording from last year. You'll see that the slides look a bit different, but it's 99% similar. So if you want to, you can look at that recording in LMS, plus also the other material. Lecture 10, no recording. Please look at the material in LMS. Lecture 11, we got an audio recording from Dr. Dingler's phone, and we put that in LMS. Today, there's no recording. I'm recording my voice on my phone, and we'll upload this in LMS. Today's lecture 12. So we know what happened. We're not trying to trick you, okay? So, do you have any questions about the exam? Yes? Sorry, can you please be quiet so I can hear the questions? Thank you. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So, which lecture was that? I believe lecture 10, yeah. So there was this lecture where I showed you our research projects. You don't have to worry about that stuff in the exam. Yes?
Those lectures
That's right. There was a guest lecturer. That's not in the exam. Yeah.
So would you please tell me what are those lectures that are not examinable? Because I just want to make sure that
Yeah.
we're not making mistakes.
So
Which lectures, yeah?
the guest lecture and the advanced methods, advanced evaluation. Yeah. And well, today's not really a lecture, so. Is there anything you want to ask me that will help you revise? Yes.
I was wondering if you could go over GCA, LCA, and 980 from Johnson.
Was that Dr. Dingler's lecture?
No, the privacy lecture.
I don't want to give another lecture now, so I'm not sure what you're asking me. Are you asking me for clarification?
Yes, clarification on the slides related to GCA and
What's GCA?
that's global. I can't remember what it's called, sorry.
So,
Slides are for like L-diversity.
So in general, don't try to memorize formulas or things like that. Just try to understand how things work. And the questions will test your understanding. So there are questions like, when would you use this or not? What's the benefit of this compared to that? So it's that kind of questions. Or what's the purpose of this thing? There is no X's and Y's in the exam. So yeah, it's not, we're not testing how well you remember formulas, but what we are testing is, if you want to achieve X, would you use this method or that method, or how would you do it? Okay? If you have more revision questions like that, please send me an email, but try to be specific, okay? So don't ask me to clarify the whole lecture, for example, yeah. Question there, yes.
I would expect you to read all the papers prescribed.
It would help. It would help because the papers give you an insight on how people think about these techniques and benefits and when would you use these things. So the papers are meant to be more in-depth, in the sense that they give you better context, more context and more critical discussion of various techniques. Yeah.
Another one is about, this is a bit technical. We demonstrated a project that the lab has done. Is that really in relation?
So don't worry about that. Yeah. Yes?
So in addition to the set that Sam provided,
I can't hear.
in addition to the set that Sam provided,
Yes?
and also just us being able to formulate like our own questions based on the lecture slides, is there other sort of resources you'd recommend for questions, like to try and answer as a process of problem solving for the exam?
Everything is in LMS. I'm not sure you could. So let me put it this way. I could tell you can read the Wikipedia article for each of these technologies, right? But that would be just too much. So we're placing a boundary on the kind of the stuff you can look at, and that boundary is LMS. Of course, because we have critical questions, if you know more about something, it would help you. But it's just impossible to tell you what more to study because it would be too much, right? The only way I could do it is if I could tell you what the questions are, and then you could go and read more about those. But that's not really ethical. Yeah.
So formulating our own sort of questions on that boundary content is the best way to.
I think so. So that's a very good suggestion. So if you're able, if you read the material from one lecture, and you say, well, what kind of question would I write for this exam? What would be a critical question that I could write for this topic? Yeah.
I found like it was like a globally closed area and also naive versus neat uniform selection.
So I can tell you more about this, but I'd rather not do it right now. Okay? Right. Yes.
You mentioned that the materials are all the elements, and that involves the readings, which are sometimes book chapters, which are 40 pages, 30 pages long. Just wondering, like, to what extent are those readings elements? Is it like you have memorized those 40 pages?
No, read it like a magazine. Okay? Read it to just. All right, let's take a step back. What do you want to do? Do you want to learn or get high grades? Both. Okay. So, that's possible. If you learn, you'll get high grades. So, please read that material not like in school, right? But read it like it's an article you came across the internet. Sometimes they're a bit advanced. Sometimes they might go into a lot of technical detail that you may or may not be able to follow. But try to read those and see what you can understand from them. Most of the chapters are taken from one book. And that book is meant to be a sort of like a textbook. So there shouldn't be too much stuff you can't follow. Okay? But we put that material there because someone has very nicely written and articulated these concepts and how they're useful. And it's good to share it with you. Yeah. We're not going to ask, what was on page 3, paragraph 2 of that paper?
No, I was just worried if you're going to ask questions based on the advanced readings, which wasn't on the slide.
So questions on the advanced.
On the readings, like, chapter, say one of the readings had 40 pages long. That would
So-
be one chapter.
So that's a research lecture, and you don't have to worry about that.
The ethnography in linguistics completely, 42 pages.
That's ethnography is week.
Ethnography is grade 8,
8, yeah. So you should read that. But read it like a magazine, okay? Question, yes. Yeah, that's you. I can't hear you. So. That? Are you asking me what's the minimum you can do to complete the class? I actually don't know. It's in the handbook. I just don't remember. Yeah. More questions? Anything to help you revise, make you feel more confident? Yes, sir. Correct. Yeah. Yeah. Let me repeat that because I don't think you heard it. So week 9 was privacy, and for privacy, I used a recording from last year. Last year, I showed more slides than this year. And the question was, what happens to those slides? And the answer is, you can ignore those slides. Any more questions? Yes.
I want to read more about privacy. Is there like a reading that you can suggest? Because I've noticed that a lot of the stuff in the materials I can't find anywhere on the internet.
You can't find stuff on privacy or...
So, for example, I was searching up like diversity on the internet, and it's like maybe one big article on one research paper, I found out that that explanation. So I looked at it. So
So yeah, that's a good point. So the material we show in the slides, you can think of it as we're trying to curate material for you, right? So we look at the body of knowledge and we decide, okay, what would be the best selection of things to show about a topic? Now, some of these things we select are well established. There's long Wikipedia articles that have been studied for a long time. Some of the things we show you are much newer, more niche, and perhaps still evolving, right? So we pick a range of these things. So some of the things you'll be able to find a lot on the internet. Some, there might be only a few research papers on them. Yeah. So that's the case. Yeah. So the question was, how can I find out more about some of the things in the class? So my answer is, for some stuff, there's a lot more you can read. For some other stuff, there's not a lot more you can read, but there's a lot you can do research on. Right? That's a trade-off. The established stuff, it's hard to do research on because it's been done so much. But the new stuff, there's not so much knowledge available, so there's a research opportunity. Very quiet. Okay. So, I want to wish you good luck. I want to remind you that I really do want you all to succeed. It makes me happy to know that a lot of students in my class are doing well, as many as possible. So we want you to succeed. I've put here the link for the survey, student survey, SES. If you can, please take time to fill it out now. It's ses.unimel, etc. And for this reason, to kind of, I'm not supposed to be in front of you when you're filling out the assessment. So please have a look at this link. And I'm going to close and I'm going to go outside and leave so that you can fill out the survey without my influence. I'm not coming back. So if you have, do you have more questions? All right, here we go. You, sir. Can you please quiet down so we can all hear the question? Yes. 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 Okay, so the question is, are algorithms in the exam? They are by name. By name. We'll talk about an algorithm, but we won't ask you to write it down. We won't ask you to write formulas, but we will ask you, like, is this a good idea or not? And would you use it in this situation or that situation? So that the question is written in such a way so that you can answer it if you know what this thing does and how it works. Yeah? Sorry, it's limited to? Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So, for example, the additional reading material we've provided, they might talk about some other algorithms that we didn't talk about in the lectures. So we won't ask you about those algorithms, right? But reading that extra material will help you understand better what we talked about in the lecture. Was there a question here? No? So, yes. The tutorial. Okay, so the tutorial, we did two things. We helped you code Android, and then we gave you feedback on your project, right? So the material, the first few weeks we had material to show you. That was to help you with the project. We're not going to ask you a question about slide 3 from that tutorial. So we're not going to do that. However, this is a class about mobile system programming. So doing those tutorials and working on your project will give you more confidence and understanding of some of these technologies. Yeah. Yes. How would you know which lecture is not included in the exam? So we just talked about it. Okay, so which lectures are not included in the exam? Advanced topics, guest lecture, from the privacy, the slides we showed last year but not this year. Sorry, the slides we showed this year only. Today's lecture, I don't think there's anything for the exam. Privacy is in, but only the slides we showed this year. Slides in LMS, yeah. Because the recording is from last year, there's a few more things, yeah. Sorry? Well, I don't know. Can you study anything about the project lecture? Not really. The guest lecture, we're not going to ask you about Telstra. So just really lecture, kind of the slides lecture, only the advanced methods we wouldn't include. Anything else? All right, so I'm going to go now. If you have detailed questions like what does this mean, how does this work, please send me an email, okay? And good luck with your project. I hope you know when your exam is. Okay, thank you.